Okay, we've got a different show today. Welcome to the Business Leadership Series. We are an official media sponsor of the Get Down to Business Lunch, and you are going to want to make a note of this website. It's getdowntobusinesslunch.com. And that's presented by the Breakers Palm Beach. That's the Easter Seals, proud to announce a 12th annual Get Down to Business Lunch. It's going to be at the Kravis Center Cohen Pavilion. It's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on January 16th. Mark that date down, and if you can get to the Palm Beach area, you want to attend this event because Kyle Maynard is going to be the keynote speaker. We're about to interview Kyle Maynard right now as the official media sponsor, so we're super excited about this event and super excited about Kyle visiting and inspiring others. Make sure you visit getdowntobusinesslunch.com to be a sponsor or to get tickets. This is an event you don't want to miss, so if you're anywhere close to Palm Beach, make sure you carve out January 16th to visit the Kravis Center and see Kyle Maynard. And that's, again, your tickets and your lunch you can get at getdowntobusinesslunch.com. Our VIP guest on the show today is Kyle Maynard, who is going to be the keynote speaker at this Get Down to Business Lunch. So let's talk to Kyle right now. Excited to have our guest today, Kyle Maynard. He's an entrepreneur, a speaker, New York Times bestselling author of the book No Excuses, award-winning extreme athlete, the first man to bear crawl to the top of the highest mountain in Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro. It's over 19,000 feet, and the summit of Argentina's Mount Aconcagua, the highest peak in both hemispheres. You have maybe seen Kyle. He's been all over. He has been described by Arnold Schwarzenegger as the real deal, a champion, one of the most inspiring people that Arnold has ever met. Oprah Winfrey calls him one of the most inspiring young men you will ever hear about. There's so many accolades here, Kyle, that I can't read them all. You've got 2 ESPY awards, and it goes on and on and on. But what's even more remarkable is your mindset and how you've been able to do it with the rare condition that you've been born with. So I want to introduce you now, Kyle, and thanks for taking the time to be with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And you did a superb job with the mountain pronunciation. That's no small feat. So
I won't lie. I had to go and Google search pronunciation, and I practiced it a couple of times.
It's paid off.
And I said, in my thought, I hope I don't mess this up when I read it. So, but luckily we're pre-recording, so I could retake if I needed to. But you confirmed that I did it right. So take us back. Just kind of tell us about your early years, and just tell me about your family environment. Tell me about the condition that you were born with. And I want to get our listeners to just get to know you if they haven't heard about you yet.
Yeah, sure. So to paint a picture for people, basically, I was born a congenital quadruple amputee. So my arms and at my elbows, my legs, and at my knees, and there was really no medical diagnosis as to what caused that to occur. It was just kind of, from the early going, my parents just did their best to try to make it as normal as possible, and sort of easier said than done thing. But, they managed to do that and kind of pulled an ultimate Jedi mind trick and not focus so much on the disability and instead focus on just helping me figure out how to do stuff. And, so it's resulted in some pretty cool adventures as you got to list out a few of them. And, and who knows whatever else is on the horizon now. But I feel like it's, I've been very, very, very fortunate.
Kyle, your story is tremendous, and I'll tell you, as I was on the treadmill today, and I don't love exercising, and I knew we were talking today, and I was just trying to do an extra half mile, and I'm like, what a baby I am. I can't do a half mile, and this guy's climbing to the top of these giant mountains, and that helped me get through my half mile, which I know is nothing to you, but to get that extra win in, I had that motivation, so I appreciate that inspiration.
Awesome. Good morning. Thank you.
I got to know, though, from an early, your family, you said played Jedi mind tricks from early on, but you played on the football team. You're in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. You're an MMA fighter, and I've seen some of your wrestling videos, and man, you're a beast in how you fight. I mean, it's amazing. Record-setting weightlifter, obviously a skilled mountaineer now. Have you always? And we'll talk about your book in a few minutes. But have you always had that no excuses mindset, or were there times early on where you thought this isn't fair? I mean, when did that mindset come on for you that you just started tackling these monster things that those that should be able to do it wouldn't go after it, and then it seems like you maybe shouldn't have done those things, and man, you excelled in all those areas.
Yeah, there's a lot of time in some of those moments thinking I probably shouldn't be here, but I think that early on there was definitely a mentality of wanting to, prove myself. And I think throughout my life, later on, as we sort of get older, sometimes we can become more accepting of our circumstance. And, it's interesting. It's the motivations kind of change over the years. I think now it's more, going in to explore areas of the planet that, that I just want to be able to go and see and experience. Like last year, for instance, did my first scuba diving and, things like that. It's not like the crazy physical accolade, but, in a different kind of way. I got to go and experience a whole new environment that's available to, anybody that wants to make an effort to do it. So I think that life is very much that way, that we live in a unique time right now where, we have tools and technology to be able to go and experience so many different places on the planet that we kind of take it for granted. It's almost as if, I don't know. It's like, when you have a attraction in your local town and you just take it for granted and you never go to see it. Right. And I feel like the same thing kind of occurs to us now from a technological perspective.
Oh, that's interesting. You say you talk. I'm listening to George St. Pierre, who's one of my favorite MMA fighters, and I was listening to him on an interview last week, and he said satisfaction is the death of an athlete. And I knew I was going to be talking to you this week, and he said in that strong French accent, and maybe some of the translation was lost, but that hit me, and it made me think of you, knowing I was going to talk to you this week too, and all the things that you keep pushing, and you talk about knowing your limits, but never stop trying to break them. Tell me about that mindset.
Yeah, I think that's meant different things to me over the years. When I was younger, that was very much more like just the physical limitations. Now I think it's like on a deeper philosophical, personal level. And, especially, I don't know, I look out into the world and see, we're kind of tearing ourselves apart, whether it's, politically, sort of like at a deeper philosophical, theological sort of like existential level. Right. And I don't know, I think that's the arena that most excites me, is to go there and into the unknown. So, I mean, those know your limits, never stop trying to break them. I think what that means to me is to measure, to have a realistic assessment of where you are in order to know where you can be capable of going. It's really kind of our own hubris that, for instance, if you were to go and say, instead of just pushing that extra half mile today, I'm going to go and, run 5 or 15 or 20 miles more than I should. And then I'm going to crush myself. And then I'm not going to go back to the gym for 2 or 3 weeks because I'm going to be so sore.
Right.
Today you knew your limit, you pushed a little bit past it, or you at least reassessed. I mean, obviously if you achieved it, then it was within your limits, but you sort of like reestablish that barrier within yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a great story on the psyche of our minds, because you talk about pushing limits, but it makes me think that how many of us, especially with seeing all the things that you've done with the physical limitation, or what seemingly would be, and it seems like you've pushed it past what people without that seemingly that shouldn't have the limitation won't do. So how have you seen, you mentioned every person on the planet has a disability, not just those that we can see. I see so many around us, myself included, sometimes that we limit ourselves, and it's really, we're not at all at the level of potential that we could be at.
Well, yeah, I think that the real hardest disabilities exist within. They're the enemy that we have to face internally. Right. It's not so much just the things that we can see on the outside, although that's what does get, a tremendous amount of attention, and it's easier to sort of like understand. In a lot of ways now, I think that going out in public, for instance, and, I think people are genuinely probably nicer to me than they are to you. And it's a weird thing to think about, but like, I think that it's true, is that people kind of, like will give me a pass, like, oh, okay, like whatever it is, and, boarding a flight or something like that, or, normally people are elbowing each other out of the way to go and get to where they're trying to go. And for me, slow down. I think it's really a great advantage at this point in my life, that versus something that, is less, exterior. For instance, some of my best friends have disabilities that you never be able to see on on the outside. One of my best friends is an advocate for HIV. She was born with it, and people will treat her totally normal until they, sometimes find out about that. And you can then see in that moment, they'll go one way or another as to how they react and respond. I find that, fascinating. I think it's a lot deeper challenge than what I currently have to face, if that makes sense.
That is an interesting perspective, and I had not thought of it that way at all. Thanks for sharing that. Man, I hate to ask questions that everyone else asks in interviews, but I'm going to have to ask a couple anyway, okay? I try to change them up, but sometimes I'm just curious. So I got to know, and I know you've heard this, but talk to me about, I know I'm not going to try to pronounce that Argentina's mountain again, because I don't want to mess it up again. We'll dub it back in.
Yeah, you're 1 for 1 right now.
That's right. Let's stay with where we're at. But talk to me, though, about the first one, because that's the first time to me seems the most daunting. Take me in a small moment. Tell me a few of the highlights or the low points or the I'm not sure if this was a good idea points where you had, I think, 16 days to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and you did it in 10, which is incredible. Give me a couple highlights of that trip because it was your first one, so it's probably pretty memorable for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just with both Kilimanjaro and Aconcagua, seeing the mountains for the first time, they're just breathtakingly beautiful, right? And it's also to that daunting moment of what did I get myself into?
Yeah.
And, I remember, it just seems like it just takes forever. Because you're just going day after day after day after day. And but then you have those moments where you're sitting literally on a sheet of ice looking back into the forest that you'd hike through and way, way further than you can see. I mean, it's such a cool perspective and experience, and there's scarier moments, slipping on a sheet of ice. I did in Kilimanjaro a little bit in, pitch black early in the morning, and just those kind of moments that definitely like wake you up. I had a watermelon-sized boulder shoot past me on Aconcagua that was probably going 50 or 60 miles an hour. Wow. And had, just some of those moments that just really test you to go and make you wonder, like, what are you doing here? But then you have also those moments too of just like the absolute breathtaking beauty. I remember, probably the coolest realization on Aconcagua was just, I remember the summit day and I was putting out as hard as I could, or at least what I thought was as hard as I could. And then my friends were told to split off and go to the summit without me. I just wasn't moving fast enough. And, I had that defeated moment of thinking I'm not going to make it. We've spent at that point, it was over 2 weeks on that mountain and another week and another one training. And I slept in an altitude bubble tent over my bed for 2 months prior to leaving. So all of those things going through my head of, now I'm going to be so close, just a couple hundred feet from the summit and not make it. But just realized, I can't waste, obviously, I don't know how much your listeners would be aware of this. It's kind of a wild statistic that your brain itself will use 20 to 25% of the total calories that you consume. Wow. So I thought, I can't waste a single calorie of energy on a positive or negative thought right now because I'm not there. So I just really just have to focus on what is directly in front of me and just stay there. Yeah, literally just focus on that and forget everything else. Wow. And just try to turn it into a game of, I'm going to do this 3 feet at a time. And there's a mantra that I go to in those moments of just saying, not dead, can't quit. And just repeat that, just the 3 feet at a time, not dead, can't quit. And then all of a sudden, I was there. So.
Wow. And what's interesting to me, because I have the stats in front of me here, you were over 20,000 feet at that point.
Yeah.
And which is higher than you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Wow. Not dead, can't quit.
That's right. Yeah, it was my friend Richard Makowitz, who battled a brain tumor last year that unfortunately got him. And I know he lived it right up until his last moment. He was a Navy SEAL and host of a few TV shows. Just an amazing mindset.
What's that feeling of accomplishment like when you get to the top? I mean, you do or what is the reward moment? That's what I'm even more curious about, because it seems quick at the top, or is it the whole journey itself? Where in there do you find your satisfaction? Because not dead, can't quit, not using any emotional positive or negative energy because you can't burn the calories with thought because you need everyone to put 3 feet ahead of you at a time. Where's the satisfaction?
It really, we spent, I mean, it was maybe 45 minutes on the summit or something like that. And, I jokingly, half jokingly say my favorite bucket list achievement was I literally had to strip down to use the bathroom on the summit because I hadn't gone all day. And then at one point I was probably the highest naked person on the planet. So it was, but yeah, really that time there sitting, it's the highest peak of the world outside of the Himalaya. And, you're looking deep into almost into the coast in Chile and over into deep in Argentina and see. I mean, it's just absolutely so beautiful. And I think because that one was the one that was the scariest in terms of pushing that close to the edge and wondering, sometimes you can overdo it, you push too far and you don't come home. And I don't know, there was just something intensely satisfying about having left everything on the line and known that if it gone any other way, that it wouldn't have worked. So that was a really special moment.
Wow. Thanks for indulging me on that story. I've been so curious about what that experience was like. So let's talk about your book for just a minute. You've been on so many shows, Oprah, Larry King Live, so many, but your book, No Excuses, New York Times bestseller. Tell me about some of the principles in this book. Tell me about your No Excuses philosophy. I know you're going to be at this event that we're a media sponsor for, talking to a sold-out crowd of professionals and executives about these concepts. What does that mean? Tell me about No Excuses and what it means for you. And then with part of that, what's your mission to share with others?
Yeah. The book itself was so long ago, it feels like a different life. It was... Wow. And there was no mountaineering when I had wrote that or MMA, even.
Wow.
I was, wrestler. So it was a while back, but it was amazing too that just presented so many opportunities to be able to go and help. I mean, there's nothing that feels better than helping someone else on their hero's journey, right? And to see people and what they're able to go and do. It's really. We do sometimes get caught up in sort of that, narcissistic, self-centered kind of world that we live in with the digital age, right? But it's really there's nothing more gratifying than seeing other people wake up to who they are and their potential in life, and whatever regard that is. Because I genuinely believe that, maybe not with everyone, but the vast majority of people, when they pursue what it is that is their bliss, then they're going to do something that is, usually going to make the world a better place. And, and I think that attitude, one of my mentors taught me this lesson of a double bottom line, that everything that he would take on, he would have this attitude of purpose and profitability. So I think that there's, great rewards that come from achievement, but the true meaning in life, I think, is carrying a bigger load for your community, for your friends, for your family, being someone that can help other people. That I think is just really, I don't know. I think it's a big aspect of what gets me excited. Or see people too just go on their adventure, their journey, whatever it is to experience in this existence itself. Seeing someone that says, I'm going to ride my motorcycle across the country, or, I've always wanted to go and travel to this place or do this thing. It's the time is not, we're not getting more time, right?
Right.
It's just, we gotta go out and experience it. So
your story's inspirational. Obviously, the way you have lived your life to accomplish so many things has been very inspirational. Is there anything big that's next for you that you can talk about? Any more mountains? Any small things? What's next for you?
Yeah. Well, one of my biggest focuses right now is, as you said, I have been fortunate enough to have other people tell my story, but there have been a lot of things that, directions that were taken with it that maybe I would have done something different. So I thought, want anything done right, do it yourself, right? So I went and been trying to teach myself, a lot more like filmmaking and editing, all of that. And it'll be interesting to see, I think, what happens with that in 2019. And the deeper sort of like philosophical aspects and the questions of like how to live, I think are what really fascinate me most right now. We live in a very interesting time. I think, over the next 25 years, we're going to see either, we go down that path of creating a world that, can really be an amazing place to exist, or, one that, who knows, we're just equally bad the other direction too. So I, at the very least, do not want to get to that point not having tried. Wow.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. So I've mentioned so many accolades, from wrestling to MMA to the being featured on these big shows, to literally climbing the biggest mountains, to you've had ESPN documentaries made about you. You've won these awards, all these things. You've been on Nike commercials. What of all these things, of all the things you've done, or the recognition you've received, or the mindset and the things you've overcome, and the things you've climbed, what is there something you can point to? It can be a small moment. Is there anything large or small that you are most proud about or most satisfied about?
This sounds kind of like silly, but I think all of the awards or accolades have taught me that awards and accolades are not where the meaning is. And I think just a couple days ago, one of my buddies, who was just a normal college kid, going in to take his final exams, got strep and got really sick, came home for Christmas break, literally would be come flying home right now, and woke up. They went to the hospital and woke up 3 weeks later, quad amputee. This is 2 years ago. And he just texted me a photo from the summit of Mount Kosciuszko, the high peak in Australia.
Wow.
And, that's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I'm almost like philosophically opposed to like awards and things of that nature in the future. A lot of like our culture gets so centered around this like recognition for silly stuff. Yeah. And that though is like, that to me is moments like that, are that's what it's all about.
Your moments are in the adventures themselves.
Yeah. Mean, what else is it? It's like you get this piece of metal or plastic, to go and recognize something that you did. It's all temporary. It's all going away. You don't need any of that stuff. You need the experience and ultimately who you share it with.
Well, Kyle, you know that, but I know from being in the advertising and marketing world that I'm in, that so many times people build up their persona and their story and are starving for recognition, like that. And I often talk about when you strip that away, what's left, especially when you build that if it's not meaningful. So you know that, but I'm glad that you're sharing that with others.
When you go and you're starving for something and you eat junk food and then 2 hours later you're still starving. So,
That's a great analogy. Hey, Kyle, I want to be respectful of your time, but just, is there any final thought you want to share with our listeners? We're super excited about this event that you're going to be at in Palm Beach. The Get Down to Business Lunch presented by the Breakers and the Business Leadership Series is excited to be an official media sponsor. We'll give some other plugs post discussion today, but what other final thoughts do you want to share with us today? A final mindset or final encouragement?
Yeah, I just, grateful for the opportunity to be there for the Breakers, but also the Easter Seal is an amazing organization, helping people with disabilities. And, I think I'm really excited for that. And, for the crowd that comes there too, I know will be, hungry to hear that kind of like double bottom line mentality message. I think I'm excited to see what comes out of it. It's ultimately, we're not too, impactful by ourselves, but collectively as a community, we can do some amazing things. I think Easter Seals demonstrate that regularly.
Wow, man, Kyle, thanks again for spending some time today. It's been inspiration, and on my list to get to talk with you, it's just lined up perfectly because I've seen what you're doing out there for the last few years, and I've thought to myself that would be so amazing to get to learn from this guy. So this lined up perfectly where they invited me to talk with you. So I've immediately said yes. Let's move this to the front of the list. Let's do it. And you have encouraged me personally, and I do this show because I want to learn, and personally I want to grow. And you've encouraged me to live those moments in the adventure and be more adventurous with it, and we're not getting any younger, so thank you for that. And man, I can't wait to watch the next great things that you're doing. You're full of surprises in these big adventures that you're doing, so thank you again for taking the time with us today.
For sure, likewise.
All right, my friend, take care. Thanks again to Kyle for joining us. I want to invite you to visit getdowntobusinesslunch.com. If you're anywhere in the Palm Beach area for January 16th, make it a destination. If it's driving distance, fly there. I'm going, and we're going to have Kyle Maynard to motivate and inspire this group of professionals. Get Down to Business Lunch presented by the Breakers Palm Beach, and the Business Leadership Series is proud to be an official media sponsor of this event. Getdowntobusinesslunch.com. You've got to go and see Kyle in person, and I promise that you will be inspired. Thank you.